Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare. So settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gills, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to the morning grind. It is great to see you. Millmaster is here. Your Lappuccino. I like that. I like that. Good morning, Stray. And Enrique is here as well. Good morning. Good to see you. Glad to have you. And JDM. Good to see you this morning. Welcome. Welcome to the show. As Vision is here as well. So, yes. Hey, Trey. Oh, Trey's here as well. Good morning. Good to see you, Trey. Welcome, everyone. So, I have been up. I hope you've been having a good morning. I've been up. Still not quite at the time I wanted, but I've been trying to work and reorganize my day. So, I've been working on direct business related tasks because there's so many projects that I've got to get done. But I was knocking stuff out yesterday. I'm knocking out stuff this morning, and I'm going to continue to knock out stuff this afternoon. So I hope that you are being as productive this morning as I have been. Hello, Jappards and David Carson. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, and Sable Phoenix is here as well. Welcome, Sable Phoenix. So today, yes, we are going to be taking a look at this. This is the Book of Vile Darkness. I actually have a physical copy, so we're just going to look at it physically right here on the table or on the desk this morning. I'm interested in taking a look at it. I've looked at it before. Man, it has been a long time. So we're going to check it out. And I did notice that, interestingly, it is written by Monty Cook, and I didn't know that. And so he was the one who's doing the cipher system, and we actually looked at his system. Well, we looked at the cipher system, but then we also took a look at his license, and we discussed the morality part of that license. And so I thought that was interesting. So I wonder if something like the Book of Vile Darkness is something that you could make for the cipher system. I mean, probably, I guess, maybe. But, you know, it's interesting how those kinds of things go. So we've taken a look at the Book of Erotic Fantasy before, but now this one is actually official of Dungeons & Dragons brands. I mean, this is from 3rd edition, but the Dungeons & Dragons logo is on this one. This is the Dungeons & Dragons Book of Vile Darkness. So we're going to take a look at that here in just 1 second. Let's go over here to the morning messages, and then we will get to the Book of Vile Darkness. The Morning Grind is brought to you by World Anvil. For all the RPG players out there, World Anvil offers extensive character management, including character sheets, journals, inventory, and spellbook. Everything a player looking to lose themselves in their character could want. Use the code MORNINGGRIND to get 40% off yearly subscriptions. The Morning Grind is also brought to you by the Cool Name RPG. Cool Name will provide design aids, tools, and resources that make it easier than ever for third parties to make new compatible content. Support its development now on Kickstarter. And thank you for being here with me live on The Morning Grind. And if you're watching on replay, welcome to you as well. It's great to have you here. If you're enjoying The Morning Grind, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. It will really help the channel grow, and I would be very thankful. We also have the Ravenkeep Discord server you can join if you would like to be a part of the community. Alright, that's what you need to know. Let's get to the main topic. Alright, so, hey, everybody got your drink with you. We don't want to forget to breathe and sip. That's an important part of the morning right here. So I've got my drink with me. 2 deep inhales and complete exhales. Then everybody take a sip of whatever beverage you have handy. Ah, great. Wonderful. All right, let's see. Let me bring up the auxiliary camera here. So this is going to be our book here. And, well, let me see what people are saying. So lots of interest in this book, it seems like. It's on my shelf. Like that book a lot back in the day. Okay, so this one's a good one. Jonas says, JDM says, I've used a fragment of the BVD as an actual item in my campaign. A character has a wizard's note spell book in which the last page is an untranslated infernal spell to summon a demon. I think the Book of Vile Darkness was actually is actually a book in 3rd edition. I think that was actually, you know, an in-universe text, and so this is kind of a meta level on that. I believe that's the case. Enrique says, I miss the D20 era so much. I don't think that I've heard anything from Kyle. I have not seen any type of update on anything related to anything that he said. I think that was must have just been a one-off kind of do some interviews and then that was it. So the Book of Vile Darkness exists in the world, right? Okay, that's what they don't know is they have a dangerous how dangerous the fragment is. Good morning, Zero Theory. Good morning. There is a whole direct-to-video movie about this thing. I didn't know that. Not the best fantasy movie ever, though. It was Shadow of the Demon Lord. Before Shadow of the Demon Lord. Huh. Okay. It was the book. Yeah, it was the book, and this is the meta book. That's what I thought. There is also a D&D movie called The Book of Vile Darkness? I didn't know that. Okay. Well, let's see what this book is. I'm going to go to the back here. So what was this trying to do? Oh, this does actually have the D20 system logo on the back. So this is definitely the heyday of the D20 system. So it says, only the most indomitable minds dare to look upon the malevolent thoughts and forbidden secrets bound herein. This corrupt tome is filled with deplorable wisdom, malignant ideas, and descriptions of creatures, rites, and practices most foul. Evil permeates every word and image described within it. That might be a little bit of an overstatement. Evil permeates every word and image described within it. That's Orcus, demon prince of the undead. Although that demon prince may be talking about the in-universe book. This is a source book for the Dungeons and Dragons. This source book for the Dungeons and Dragons game is intended for mature audiences and provides a dungeon master with unflinching access to subject matter that will broaden any campaign. Included is a detailed look at the nature of evil. I'd be interested to know what it says about that. Included is a detailed look at the nature of evil and the complex challenges of confronting the many dilemmas found within the deepest shadows. Along with wicked spells, wondrous items, and artifacts, the Book of Vile Darkness also provides descriptions and statistics for a host of abominable monsters, archdevils, and demon princes to pit against the noblest of heroes. Enrique says this movie is from 2012. It's about a paladin that has to infiltrate an evil cult in order to destroy the book. Huh. I'll have to check that out. All right, let's see what's in the table of contents right here. So we've got introduction. So we'll take a look at that and see what's in this. The nature of evil. I want to check out what it says about the nature of evil. Variant rules, evil equipment, feats, prestige classes, magic, lords of evil, evil monsters, and then appendix evil PCs. So it does say hide this book. The Book of Vile Darkness is for dungeon masters only. Just as you would keep the contents of a published adventure to yourself, restrict your players' access to this book as well. Don't let them know what's in store for their characters. Oh, author's note. Monty Cook provided a note here. And he says, I do not condone, endorse, or seek to glorify anything in this book as it might relate to the real world. This is bad stuff, and I'm not a bad person. Really. Okay. Unflinching. You heard it here first. Robert, cool. Miller says, wait a minute. If y'all turned on sub gifting, I might do more than like and subscribe. Well, now hang on. Let me check that out. I didn't know that was something that wasn't like just turned on or something like that. Do I need to go and look at that? 1 second. I will go investigate. That remember when I was trying to turn on channel memberships, I had to look at a couple of different things and get it. It took a little bit to get it started because I had to check different things. So let me just check into that for just a moment. Does anybody know how to do that? Memberships. Turn on membership gifting. YouTube. Well, I'll have to look at that. I didn't know that was something that just wasn't available. No, it says existing channel members click the button, the $ next to the live chat. Viewers opt in to be eligible to receive gifts on a channel. Huh. All right. Well, I'll have to look into that. Yeah, Zero. You're talking about what author's note said right here. I guess he was feeling like he was dealing with such subject matter that he had to. So each. Oh, okay. So that does to me. It's you. Okay. Well, now, hey, everybody out there. Okay, this is new stuff because I didn't know that either. So individuals somehow, if you would like to receive gifts for memberships and things like that, hey, make sure that you have your account set active to do that. So, okay, so maybe it's each individual person. So do look into that. It says you must you must allow gifts on a gift membership announcement that shows the live chat when someone has purchased a gift, or by clicking the gift icon that's pinned to the top of the live chat. We need to investigate that. I'll find out more. In fact, let me make a note of that right over here. Oh, actually, let me make a note of that over here so I actually see the note. Hey, Retro Nerd Girl. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, do check out her channel. Okay, so author's note, evil in your game. Now, see, the evil in Dungeons and Dragons is kind of a different kind of thing, because I think kind of the first thing that you have to talk about is the fact that evil is like something that's objective and actually has mechanical effects in Dungeons and Dragons, right? So, you know, if we're talking about the nature of evil in our world, okay, well, that's one thing. When there's a lot that we can talk about that, and of course, a lot of things that have been talked about that philosophically. But I think, to me, the first thing I would sort of recognize is that, hey, in the world of Dungeons and Dragons, when you've got alignment and you've got certain items that function for evil creatures or against evil creatures or damage evil creatures or good creatures or whatever else, that it actually becomes a function. It actually has a mechanical function. So I don't know where he's about to go with this. I'm interested. But it seems like within the context of Dungeons and Dragons, there's something objective and mechanical about evil. So it says, good and evil are not philosophical. Oh, well, actually, this is the first thing it says right here. It says, from the player's handbook, good and evil are not philosophical concepts in the D&D game. They are the forces that define the cosmos. Evil is a word that's probably overused. In the context of the game, and certainly in this book, the word should be reserved for the dark force of destruction and death that tempts souls to wrongdoing and perverts wholesomeness and purity at every turn. Evil is a vile, corrupt, and irredeemably dark. It's not naughty or ill-tempered or misunderstood. It's black-hearted, selfish, cruel, bloodthirsty, and malevolent. So, okay, this actually says there are two recommended ways to deal with the concept of evil in your campaign: the objective approach and the relative approach. The second option is a variant approach and should be used with some caution. Oh, interesting. So what is the objective approach to evil? This is the straightforward approach taken in the D&D game, as one of the ones stressed in this book as well. From this frame of reference, evil can be judged objectively. The evil nature of a creature, act, or item isn't relative to the person observing it. It's just evil or it isn't. This clear-cut definition allows spells such as Holy Smite to work. Conversely, an objective definition of evil exists because the detect evil spell works. Okay, so this is exactly the kind of stuff that I was talking about. I think you have to deal with that, why the conversation about good and evil in Dungeons and Dragons specifically is different than just good and evil in our world. Conversely, an objective definition of evil exists because the detect evil spell works. Want to know what's evil? Don't study a philosophy book. Just watch who gets hurt when the cleric casts Holy Smite. These creatures are evil. The things they do, generally speaking, are evil acts. If your character isn't certain, he can summon a celestial creature or cast commune spell and simply ask, is this evil? The higher powers are right there and ready to communicate. The player's handbook says evil implies hurting, oppressing, and killing others. Some evil creatures simply have no compassion for others and kill without qualm if doing so is convenient. Others actively pursue evil, killing for sport, out of duty, or to some evil deity or master. The objective approach to evil works well for fantasy role-playing games. Evil is a thing that a hero can point at and know that he must fight. I think we also talked about this, or I talked about this quite a bit on when I was talking about orcs and the demonic. I think we might tomorrow night do another Crafter's Corner rather than playing video games. I don't have a show ready, but rather than playing video games, I think I really didn't get to paint lately, and I've got a bunch of stuff to paint. So we may do some painting, and we might either the Friday or Sunday talk about orcs and orcishness on that show, because I think there's a lot to say. So we did talk about the orcs as demonic and inherently evil, and how that's changed in gaming over time. Yeah, Millmaster says a question as old as humanity: are men made evil or born evil? Nope. Yep. And orcs, actually just talking about that. So yes. So yeah. So we've talked about that quite a bit on this channel. I've got several videos on the natures of orc and orcishness. Robert says, right. So in my setting, I've made the goddess death true neutral. Usually death gods are evil. also have undeath in their portfolios, so I made an evil undeath goddess so they're opponents. I can see that. Like the death itself being neutral. So it says, the objective approach to evil works well for fantasy role-playing games. Evil is a thing that heroes can point at and know they must fight. An objective concept of evil allows players and their characters to avoid most ethical and moral quandaries, particularly the kinds that can derail a game session. If you run an adventure about fighting gnolls, you don't normally want an entire session consumed by a philosophical debate whether killing the gnolls is a good thing or a bad thing. Okay, now the variant approach is, the relative is a variant approach. So let's see what this says. A second approach considers evil to be a relative concept that's wholly dependent upon the attitude of the observer. This is not the approach of most D&D games. Rather, it resembles how most people see the real world. Using this variant outlook changes the game dramatically, at least as far as evil is concerned. In the relative approach, evil is not something that your character can point a finger at. It's relative to each individual. While it's possible for a number of creatures, an entire culture, for instance, to be similar on views of what is good and what is evil, another group might have a different or an opposite view. Of course, conflicting views can also occur if your D&D game uses the objective approach. But in this case, one group can simply prove that its views are right. In a world where evil is relative, a deity might put forth tenets describing what is right and wrong or good and evil, but another god might have different, even contradictory dogma. A paladin of one deity might talk about the evil, godless heathens across the mountains and eventually go to war with them. If she does, she may find herself battling paladins of a different god and a different culture who look upon the crusading paladin as an evil infidel. If you decide this approach is what you want, you have some game-related decisions to make. For instance, in a world where evil is relative, how does Detect Evil spell work? When the two paladins of opposing views meet on the field of battle, can they use their smite abilities against one another? The easiest and best option in this case is to do away with spells such as Detect Evil because they have no real meaning. Take away good and evil descriptions from spells so any character can cast any of those and disregard any holy or unholy damage the weapon does. Having to know or determine the outlook of a character casting Detect Evil is cumbersome and unwieldy, and it leads to confusion and arguments over who should be affected by the paladin's holy sword or the cleric's smite. Has anybody done that? Has anybody tried to run a game like that? I have not. I've never been in a game like that. Sable Phoenix says, I actually find the attempts to erase alignment from D&D annoyingly postmodernist and frankly a little troubling. Also, Planescape is my favorite setting that is inexorably built upon the alignments of the planes. I'll have to think about that. I don't. To me, alignment is one of the first things that goes. Like, we didn't use alignment, or actually, no, we used a different kind of alignment system that was created by somebody else, and we were trying to look at develop the Journey to the Tree of Sorrows Cthulhu game. So I don't think it necessarily has to be postmodernist, but it might be that a lot of it, a lot of current thought on it is. Trey says, this would work well with Deathbringer. It has a corruption mechanic. Robert says, I also had the God of War go from chaotic neutral to neutral in the story when he starts allowing for just wars intended to maintain order. Ends up helping the God of Justice. Oh, just war theory. Just war theory from the God of Justice. Deathbringer. See, I guess I don't know what that one is. Now eat your shirt and watch more Dungeon Craft. Enrique says, I 100% agree with Sable Phoenix. Alignment is absurd applied to the real world, but it just works. It's awesome. In a situation like with the objective evil, like it's talking about, it does seem to just work. Okay, so let's see. I'm interested in this first section specifically because, like I said, I've done so much on orcs and orcishness on the channel and the demonic and things like that. Hey, if you haven't seen the conversation that I had on this subject on good and evil and storytelling with Cameron Pasha, man, that was a fantastic conversation. We're gonna have to go over that one sometime on the Crafter's Corner again. That was a table talk with Cameron. It's really good. That was a fantastic conversation, specifically on the nature of good and evil and its use specifically in storytelling. It was so good. So defining evil, of course, even if you take an objective approach to evil to your game, evil people might not always call themselves evil. They would be wrong or simply lying to do so, but they might still deny their evil nature. Just as most deranged mass murderers might be able to justify his actions in the name of his beliefs, his deity, or some skewed version of what is best for the world. A killer might slay any children he deems weak or unfit to reach adulthood. Another might kill children he believes will grow up and become evil themselves. So a killer might slay any children he deems weak or unfit to reach adulthood. Another might kill children he believes will grow up and become evil themselves. Perhaps such a killer once had a prophetic dream telling him that evil was growing amongst the children in the town. On a larger scale, an evil priest might believe that to better serve his dark god, he needs to destroy an entire village and sacrifice all the residents. Is that evil? Yes. Does the priest see it as evil? No, he sees it as a demonstration of his unending devotion and aspect of his faith. Or perhaps he does see it as evil and doesn't care. A dictator might order the elimination of an entire race of good creatures because she believes them to be evil. She might seek to dominate the world and bring its people under her unyielding fist. But such a despot could also believe that she is a good person and the world would be better off with his guidance. This makes her no less a villain. Jappert says, my setting has an angel of souls. She's more of an angel of reincarnation than death. She's neutral and maybe lawful neutral. Most D&D, most non-D&D I run, I set the alignments based on player action. Jonas says, my parties just argue while drinking. Good, evil, life, death, taco, pizza, etc. Zero Theory says, I think it's telling very few other tabletop RPGs adopted alignment mechanics. Personally, it annoys me when players rely on alignment when making their decisions. Retro Nerd Girl says, this is great stuff. So far, what I've been reading here is better than the book, more useful than the Book of Erotic Fantasy. So intent and context, because I am interested to know, how is this setting up evil anyway? So does the objective definition of evil imply that intent plays no part in determining what is good and evil? Only to a degree. Consider the paladin Zophas. When climbing up the top of a hill of loose rocks to get away from some owlbears, he triggers a rock slide that buries the owlbears and continues down the hill, crushing a hut full of commoners. Is Zophas an evil murderer who must suddenly lose his lawful good alignment? No, although Zophas might still guilt and responsibility. He might attempt to right the inadvertent wrong as best he can. But what if Zophas' friend Shurin says, don't climb up there, Zophas. You might start a rock slide that will crush the hut. But Zophas goes anyway. Now is he evil? Probably. Zophas was either careless, endangering the commoners, or so overconfident of his climbing prowess that he acted out of hubris. At this point, Zophas isn't exactly a murderer, but he should probably lose his paladin abilities until he receives an atonement spell, or otherwise makes amends. Interesting. If Zophas can clearly see the danger of the rock side but climbs up anyway, he wants to get away from the owlbear. That's clearly evil. Because he wants to get away from the owlbears, he's clearly evil. In a world of black and white distinctions between good and evil, killing innocents to save yourself is an evil act. Sacrificing yourself for the good of others is a good act. It's a high standard, but that's the way it is. The foregoing text defines 3 levels of intent: accidental acts, reckless or negligent acts, and intentionally evil misdeeds. So 3 levels of intent: accidental acts, reckless or negligent acts, and intentionally evil misdeeds. Sometimes, however, these categories are sufficient to determine evil intent, or insufficient. You are free to judge an act in the context of other actions. A maniac puts poison into a town's water supply, believing wrongly that all the townspeople are demons. Is that evil? Yes. A Glabrazu convinces a good character that the townsfolk are all fiends that must be destroyed. So as the character pours poison into the town's water supply. Is that evil? Probably not. At least not in the context of the rest of the character's actions and the circumstances involved. So isn't a Glabrazu a demon? I think that's important for this context. A demon convinces a good character the townsfolk are fiends that must be destroyed. So the character poisons the water supply. Is that evil? Still, Good characters shouldn't commit even remotely questionable acts on a large scale unless there's absolutely sure there's no other way to succeed. It's rarely a good idea to destroy a town of evil people because there might be at least a few good people in the town as well. That sounds like, what was that, Sodom and Gomorrah? That, hey, if you can find just one group or one extra person or one person, will you not destroy it? But let's make it more complicated. Another character witnesses the good character about to put poison in the town's drinking water. Is it evil for the witness to kill the poisoning character in attempt to stop him? No. Again, the intent isn't evil, but the context makes such an act preferable to the alternative. Is it evil for the witness to kill the poisoning character in order to stop him? No, it's not, this says. Again, the intent isn't evil, and the context makes it such an act preferable to the alternative. Standing by while mass murder occurs, the other choice the witness has, is far more evil than preventing the poisoning. Sable Phoenix says, we could get into a discussion about relativism and how postmodernists attempt to apply it to everything, no matter whether it's in real life or fiction. But that's beyond the scope of even this book. I would say that is beyond the scope of this book, yes. Interesting discussion, probably. Enrique says, that's a problem because people can grow and change. And yes, character alignment can change, but always moving in small increments. Although Monty Cook's forward here is a good, if simplistic, refutation of relativism. He does make a very, at least I'll say clear case. I mean, I've enjoyed what's written here for how to apply this and how this works in a cosmos of D&D. Oh, got Retro Nerd Girl also says that interview with Cameron was very good. Loved it. Yes, definitely check that one out. If that's if the good and evil is something you're interested in. We had a great discussion. Rambler says, I use alignment for the PC's actions, not the setting. I often put PCs in a situation that are not so black and white. Those orcs are defending the village below the valley and even maintain the bridge. Millmaster says alignment can be a crutch for players to fall back on when role-playing, but also a good way to divide up morally dubious items or spells. Yes, hey, Rambler. Enrique says, something I like about pure evil is that it forces the normal people to take hard decisions. Purely evil characters are not interesting per se, but it makes the stories way more interesting. Well, that's something that I talked about or thought about. What are you trying to get at in a story here, and what's the purpose here? Like, even if you said, let's say that you didn't think there was pure evil in real life. That's not something that you're going to encounter in real life. So does that mean that we shouldn't be using evil or the demoniacal in stories? And I don't think that's the case. That's the case that you could say, some people say, no, wait a minute. In real life, is there evil? And that person could come to the conclusion and say no. And so they might therefore say, hey, then let's not have evil or demoniacal things in a fantasy or fictional setting. But really, I don't agree with that you could still have the evil and demoniacal in the setting for much of the reasons that you're talking about right here, because because the story or the fiction could be telling you something about or trying to make some kind of statement about the way that you should act in the face of evil. Like, if we're not dealing with the determination of evil or the demoniacal, when you're dealing with the demonic, what is the right approach to dealing with it? Zero the Blade says, this is why the lawful and chaotic was added to good and evil. And I'm a fan of lawful and chaotic. John Schwartz says, I think alignment works better when it avoids good and evil. Few people call themselves evil, but people divide between individualistic, cooperative, or pragmatic and idealistic. Well, this did also bring up in the world of objective evil that the evil people might not even consider themselves evil. Sable Phoenix, I like to call the law chaos axis the ethical axis and the good evil axis as the moral axis. I'll have to think more about that. I like the law and chaos predates good and evil in D&D. That there was some type of adventure or something that was like explicitly about that. I remember reading something like, before there was even good and evil, there was law and chaos. There was something like that. Okay, so gray areas. Even with the most black and white objective approach to good and evil, gray areas will still exist. Consider this example. A terrible disease has come to the village of Varro, and the cure lies in the heartwood of the sacred trees of the Varro wood. The villagers go into the wood to get the cure. The druid of the Varro wood believes that the trees are holy and should not be violated. They try to stop the villagers. Is either side truly evil in this scenario? Probably not. Not all conflicts. Now, see, but there is an argument that you could have this set up. Okay, so we've got these villagers who've got to cure this terrible disease, and they've got to get it from these sacred trees, and the druids are otherwise good druids who want to prevent it. I mean, one thing you can do in a story, and maybe and often in an RPG, although maybe sometimes the characters force your hand, the players force your hand, but is just to not come up with these situations. Like, George R.R. Martin talked about, genocide against baby orcs. Like, what do you do if you come up with a baby orc in a crib? Well, if you're having the orcs represent the demoniacal, like, do you ever even just, like, maybe there are no baby orcs and you just don't ever have that come up, because that would mess up your idea, or potentially mess up your idea of trying to understand what do you do when you encounter the demonic. Not all conflicts are based on good versus evil. Is it possible for two good nations? It is possible for two good nations to go to war. It's likely that two evil nations will go to war. Is it evil for your characters to kill a good character if your character's kingdom is at war with this? War with his. That's certainly a gray area. Characters who are extremely strict in their moral outlook, and that probably has something to do with lawful, right? Characters who are extremely strict in their moral outlook should choose to examine the reasoning behind war very closely. In general, quarter should be given and accepted. Such a character should cause no more damage and inflict no more harm than is necessary. If possible, he or she should find a different way to resolve the conflict. Evil acts. Okay, I don't want to go over every one of these, but there seem like some good ones in here. Enrique says, monstrous, unredeemable characters are fun for any fantasy setting because they act like an earthquake. You can't understand and you can't negotiate. You have to think and act. Sable Phoenix says, but it's descriptive, not proscriptive. I always cringe at stories of DMs saying that a player can't do something because that's not their character's alignment. Jappards comes back with, alignment does not allow for gradual steps. I don't like postmodernism either, but I'm also not much of a fan of alignment. The postmodernists throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm going to skip down a little bit. Oh, you think there's... I noticed in conversations, many people don't understand chaotic and how it differentiates from evil. I see players saying one act is chaotic when it's actually evil. Yeah, paladins have... John says, I mean, paladins were historical, but D&D paladins aren't really Charlemagne's. Yeah, what we have as a Dungeons & Dragons paladin is kind of... is only loosely connected to... historical examples of paladinhood. I mean, it's there. I guess you can see its foundation, but it's kind of become its own thing. Okay, so we've got evil acts. Lying. It says lying is not necessarily an evil act, although it's a tool that can easily be used for evil ends. Lying is so easy to use for evil purposes that most knightly codes and the creeds of many good religions forbid it altogether. Cheating. Cheating is breaking the rules for personal gain. When villains cheat, it's not just at games. They create contracts with clauses they can manipulate to trick others. Theft. Any child can tell you that stealing is wrong. Villains, however, often see the theft as the best way to acquire what they want. Evil people pay only for the things they cannot take. An evil character needs a reason not to steal. Fear of being caught is the most common deterrent, but sometimes a villainous villain elects not to steal an item because he or she doesn't want to incur the wrath of its owner. For example, a drow cleric might pay a rogue for a magic item. The cleric isn't adverse to stealing from the rogue, but she pays for the item, so the rogue will continue working for her. Let's see, what does it say about murder? Killing is one of the most horrible acts that a creature can commit. Murder is the killing of an innocent creature. Murder is the killing of an intelligent creature for a nefarious purpose. Theft, personal gain, perverse pleasure, or the like. The heroes who go into the green dragon's woodland lair to slay it are not murderers. In a fantasy world based on objective definitions of evil, killing an evil creature to stop it from doing further harm is not an evil act. Even killing an evil creature for personal gain is not exactly evil, although it's not a good act, because it still stops the creature's predation on the innocent. Such a justification, however, works only for the slaying of creatures of consummate irredeemable evil, such as chromatic dragons. Evil beings delight in murder. It's the ultimate expression of their power and the willingness to commit any sort of heinous act. It shows they are either powerful enough to detached enough to do everything they wish. To particularly evil creatures, especially those with a very alien outlook, murder is itself a desirable goal. Some such creatures hate life and despise all that lives. They relish either death or undeath and seek to quench life wherever possible. Such creatures are usually, but not always, undead themselves. I want to know what it says about worshiping evil gods and demons. I'm scrolling down a little bit. Yeah, why must clerics be good? Can't we have evil clerics? Well, we do. We do. The same goes for paladins and druids. Now there was a book. Okay, wait a minute. Dungeons and Dragons had an explanation for that. Or a potential one to use. Hang on. I'm getting out Unearthed Arcana right here because that's an interesting one to track down. I think it was in this book. Is this the one where it talked about evil paladins? Paladin, maybe 53. Paladin, well, maybe not. I need to look for that, though. If anybody knows where that is, call it out and we'll check it out. Because it was saying that, I mean, there are two ways that you can go with it. It seemed like that the classic way, because the classic way that it was there were not evil paladins. Because it was not setting the world up according to the D&D alignment system and everything like that. It was not setting this up so that evil was a mirror of good. And but you could set it up as a mirror, as evil as a mirror of good, and then you could have evil paladins, and you would just like mirror them right across one another. But it had to do something. It talked about something to do with the nature of evil, that evil didn't support something like a paladin. Like there was no evil equivalent of a paladin. Now, I think in that same context, it did provide like an alternate paladin write-up for an evil paladin. But I remember reading that someplace. In fact, who knows? It might have even been in here. Maybe it talks about evil paladins in here. Maybe we'll get to it. Looks like we're going to spend several days on this book because this has so far been good and invoked great conversation. But I do remember that coming up. Trey says, the main reason I like the idea of using something like Deathbringer is that you can detect corruption instead of evil, and that there is something more tangible to show than evil. Well, like taint rules in Unearthed Arcana. I mean, corruption is something that's really common for, that's really common to want to add. I think even Ataltis added corruption. I like that too. Or taint, that you see this manifestation of some type of physical evil. Well, I try. I can't get to them all, but I enjoy the dialogue. I want this to be an interactive show. The morning grind often is. I suppose if we get more popular, we won't be able to go through all of them. But I like hearing what people have to say. Okay, let's see worshiping evil gods and demons. Especially since I want to create theophany. Let's see what it says here. Priests who revere dark powers as evil as the beings they serve. Priests who revere dark powers are as evil as the beings they serve. In the name of Vecna, Earthanol, or Lolth, these foul emissaries make living sacrifices, conduct malevolent rites, and put schemes in motion to aid their patrons. Sometimes the activities of evil cultists are straightforward, kidnapping victims for sacrifice, stealing money to fund their temples, or simply following a dogma that requires murder, rape, or activities even more foul. Other times, their machinations are far more subtle than such overt crimes. For example, the archdevil such as Belial might begin a scheme by instructing his followers in a town, through dreams, visions, and commune spells, to drive off families with healthy children of a particular age. In 20 years, when the children have been adults in their prime, Belial intends to unleash a powerful cornogen. I don't know what that word is. Hang on. Define cornogen. Oh. It's a type of monster. An ogre-sized creature whose bodies reached up to 9 feet tall. They were 600 pounds, roughly humanoid beings with bodies sheathed in repulsive scales. And that actually comes from the Forgotten Realms fandom wiki. So, okay, that's a Forgotten Realms thing. That's cool. So, he's planning on releasing these ogre creatures to steal a valuable artifact from the local church. With few able-bodied adults available to stop the theft, the Cornogan is more likely to succeed. Evil temples are sometimes secret places hidden within unsuspecting communities. Beneath an old barn, a warehouse, or simply a back room of someone's home, an evil temple can be anywhere. Larger, more permanent shrines to malevolence are usually situated farther from civilization, at least far away from good-aligned communities. Such an evil church may be a towering structure of stone covered with macabre reliefs and filled with terrible statuary standing alone in the wilderness. Other evil temples may be surrounded by towns or cities populated by foul creatures. Okay, so maybe it was the Blackguard. Sable Phoenix says there are evil paladins and clerics. In 3rd ed, there was a Blackguard class, which was explicitly an evil-aligned paladin. Yeah, the Cool Name RPG is here. Also, you know, I watched Mark's second design blog. If you look at the Mechanical Muse, if you're looking for something else after this, if you look at the Mechanical Muse YouTube channel, and then go to his design blog. There was about a 45-minute discussion last night about the design principles of the Cool Name RPG. I thought it was a great discussion. So if you're looking for something other than 5e, you know, 5e, I guess that goes on with Black Flag. But if you're looking for something to go on to that's completely not 5e, and you're interested, check out the Mechanical Muse YouTube channel and watch the design blog. It was great. Robert says, of course, there's good and evil in the world. They are artificial terms, but they represent consistent types of behavior. To make sense, the author needs to be good or just neutral. Jonas says, Monty Cook also wrote a lot of Planescape, in which the Blood Wars was a large feature. Thus, the good versus evil could take a much larger context over time, as the two evils are eating over law and chaos. Oh, Sable Phoenix. Oh, so we're talking about these pattern behaviors. I don't know Planescape. I'm only tangentially familiar with it. Maybe something we should look at on the channel sometime. What we're calling good and evil in real life are patterns of behavior that consistently cause help or harm. Chaotic good is a great alignment, for example, to break the rules to achieve good ends behind the party leader. Lawful good paladins back. In the late 90s, oh, then you're right. I hadn't thought about this in the context of Game of Thrones. In the late 90s, good and evil were considered things of the past in fantasy fiction and RPGs. Really, Game of Thrones was published back then, but then Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings movies changed everything back. That's an interesting timeline to think about. Let's see. Animating the undead or creating undead. Unliving corpses, corrupt mockeries of life and purity, are inherently evil. Creating them is one of the most heinous crimes against the world that a character can commit. So this kind of goes with, we talking about the goddess of death being neutral in general, but then but the person who's actually creating the undead is evil. That kind of goes along with this. Creating them is one of the most heinous crimes against the world a character can commit. Even if they are commanded to do something good, undead inevitably bring negative energy into the world, which makes it a darker and more evil place. So this is saying that the undead are inherently evil. Most communities keep their graveyards behind a high wall or even post guards to keep grave robbers out. Grave robbing is often a lucrative practice since necromancers pay good coin for raw materials. Of course, battlefields are also popular places for grave robbers or for necromancers themselves to seek corpses. Casting evil spells. Evil spells may create undead, inflict undue suffering, harm another's soul, or produce any of a slew of similar effects. Sometimes a non-evil spellcaster can get away with casting a few evil spells as long as he or she does not do so for an evil purpose, but the path of evil magic leads quickly to corruption and destruction. Spells with corruption costs are so evil that they take a physical and spiritual toll on the caster. So we do have something called corrupt magic in this. Damning or harming souls. While harming one's enemies physically is not inherently villainous, harming their souls is always evil. Only the foulest of villains could actually want to cause pain to another creature's eternal aspect. Creatures without corrupt hearts simply dispatch their foes quickly, believing that sending a villain off to justice of the afterlife is punishment enough. But evil beings like to capture foes or torment them to death, and even prefer to torture the souls of their foes, never granting them the release of death. Worse still, some evil beings use their foul magic to destroy an opponent's soul, ending his or her existence together. Consorting with fiends is next. Oh, John is wondering, but that's interesting, the end of the Cold War and the end of history. I remember being deep into the end of history in graduate school. I don't know, it might be, but even the early 2000s mostly avoided this trope. In World of Warcraft 3, orcs are good guys. I'm surprised that people today are thinking they are reinventing the wheel. Yeah, as far as I was able to track back the development of orcs as people. Now you're talking about Warcraft 3, but really the Warcraft 1 started to develop them as a civilization and more with more qualities of society and personhood than the demonic. There was a dragon article, Mike says, that had paladins of every alignment. I might remember that. So Robert says, right, so an evil necromancer turning people into zombies in the service of evil undeath goddess is objectively evil. Good or neutral necromancers lays those zombies to rest. And, you know, I've talked about this quite a bit before, that I remember we looked at, on one show, I think it was a wind down topic one night, where we looked at what the changing, like, it seems like every edition, the healing spell changes spell school. And I remember healing being necromancy. So if you were, you're right, you could be a good or neutral necromancer, but because opposites are often studied in the same school, you know, or same subject matter. So life and death. So to me, the healing magic, the healing wizard could be the necromancer, and you're not creating undead, but you're giving life, and then you're potentially putting down undead. I like that. Yeah, see, that's the Pan was talking about, you know, what is going on here, but that's actually how this started off. If you're just joining in, he does talk about this in the very beginning, the nature of this. Brent, hey Brent, good to see you. Welcome to the show. I think it's important to remember that third 3.5 used good and evil and law chaos alignment as axes as game mechanics. Yeah. So it's Cormugon. Terrace is stupid says it's. I always pronounce it Cornugon. That's the first time I'd ever encountered that word. I guess I didn't fight them in the Forgotten Realms. Yep, that's true. All right, let's go on a little bit here. So what time is it? Okay, so I typically go for about an hour. We're gonna need a lot more time on this book. This actually, to me, this is a good book so far. This is not a treatise on good and evil in the real world, but we're talking about how to deal with objective good mainly in the context of Dungeons and Dragons. And so far, I've liked what I've been reading here. So I think I definitely want to go with this. So this is going to be a multi-day. Tomorrow we're unboxing Starfinder, and then we're looking at something that's come out from Kobold Press on Saturday. I don't know what we'll do on Sunday, but maybe at least Monday. So on different days, we're going to come back to this because there's a lot more. Because I've been enjoying this so far. I've been enjoying the conversation. I've been enjoying what this says. Actually, this does make me think back to the book of erotic fantasy again and say, you know what? If that book, because we talked about when we were discussing that book, the issues regarding fertility gods and religion and all different things from the world building perspective, when we might be talking about sex and reproduction and things like that. If that book had been more like this book, so there might actually be a market for a book about sexuality in role-playing games and fantasy, or Dungeons and Dragons specifically, I don't know, or whatever we're working on, that's actually written more like this quality. Because I guess the book of erotic fantasy was kind of what I was expected. But we came up with a lot of topics that we would like for that kind of stuff to address that book didn't. So if that book were more like this book, to me, it probably would have been better. And perhaps less controversial, too. So, consorting with fiends. If characters can be judged by the company they keep, then those who deal with fiends, demons, and devils are surely evil beings themselves. Fiends are the ultimate expression of evil given animate form. Literally evil incarnate. Destroying a fiend is always a good act. Allowing a fiend to exist, let alone summon one or helping one, is clearly evil. Occasionally, a spellcaster may summon a fiendish creature to accomplish some task. Such is an evil act, but not terribly so. However, some characters, particularly those who worship demons or devils, or see them as valuable allies, may work for or work with or for fiends to further their own ends. So how does that relate to warlocks? I don't think there were warlocks in 3rd edition. Although dealing with fiends or selling souls is tricky at best, the lust for power is temptation too strong for some to resist. But fiends have got great power, infinite lifespans, and delight in double-crossing others. So it's no surprise that most characters who ask for a fiend's aid end up on the wrong end of the deals they make. Let's go ahead and take a look before we go, and then I'm going to go back to the chat here. But let's take a look at creating evil creatures. Some villains are not content with simply consorting with, summoning, or controlling evil creatures. They feel the need to go one step further and actually create such creatures with foul experiments or evil magic. Evil warlords sometimes create legions of horrible monsters or have their underlings do so, and lead into the battle against forces of good. Demons, devils, and other foul creatures guard their fortresses. The desire to create is strong, and so is the desire to have a large number of easily controllable minions. Both creation and control demonstrate power, and mad power villains are all too common. Another way to create evil creatures is to allow the monsters themselves to remake fallen foes in their own images. For example, if Bodak's victims rise the next day as new Bodaks, and a werewolf can spread its evil by infecting others with lycanthropy. Characters who foster such processes are often interested in spreading evil for evil's sake. Such evildoers love chaos, death, and suffering that such monsters bring. I need something to use as something to use as a bookmark, because I want to return to this. This is much more useful. Hey, Pan's agreeing with Brent. Robert says, interesting question. God of laws and justice, lawful good or lawful neutral? If good, how to protect the natural rights of people prone to evil religions? That's interesting. Would a God of law and justice be lawful good or lawful neutral? I think I would be tempted. My initial impression would be to go, okay, it's a lawful neutral God. We'll see. Oh yeah, so we need to. We didn't finish our Black Flag playtest, looking over and reading last time, so we still need to go back to that. I forgot about that when planning out stuff. So we'll talk more about Black Flag and our thing. I've been thinking about it. We'll talk about that when we come back to it another day. A Warrior of Darkness on page 75. I think I may have been thinking about Blackguard, but let's see. We'll get to it then, but let me see what this says over here. Because it seems like the anti-paladin would be something over here. Warrior of Darkness. Oh, this says Warrior of Darkness, sometimes called a Dark Knight, is a practitioner of black magic. See, part of me, just when I'm thinking about the fun perspective, part of me likes the mirror of good and evil, where you would have, set up the paladin, something like that on both sides. And I could see some kind of setup where I'd be interested in that from fantasy world building and the gameplay perspective. Other parts of me wants it to be different. Like, why not? Why just mirror the paladin when you could do something a bit different? Planescape Torment could be a future installment of Plugged In. Could be. Oh, wait. I don't know. Is the best CRPG ever made? Really? Oh, lots of love for that one. See, Sable says, I always found the Planes of the Great Wheel fascinating in D&D before that game, but it was what made me love Planescape as the king of all settings. I did a lot of AD&D play. That was when I got into it. Lots of people talking about Black Flag. I'm going to skip over that because we'll return to Black Flag. It hasn't completely settled with me yet. And I was saying that I also did a whole lot of, we just come off of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Not Advanced, we had just come off of Advanced 5e when I was doing that. And so I was, I guess I felt like I had read a lot of that because we had just done so much on Advanced 5e. Warhammer orcs are evil London gangsters mixed with the worst tropes of the Romans and applied to Celtic tribes. The results is 100% fun. If you try to make them people, it would be a bore. And I was also in Warhammer, they actually make them spores. Like, they just grow. They just pop up out of the ground and stuff like that. So it's not, you don't ever have to deal with, like, the baby orc, right? I know when this book came out, there was a thing that the bookstores had to shrink wrap it and add a card or sticker that said mature content. Interesting. A famous draconic quote Stray says, power corrupts those who without power crave it. Are we not destined to crave corruption? Oh. Enrique says, I confess, in my games, I always include an evil paladin of Cthulhu. All right. Well, I've really enjoyed this. So maybe Monday we return to the Book of Vile Darkness. Maybe we do more Black Flag on Sunday. I've got cards from Pathfinder coming in. Sunday's typically a potpourri day. It may not take us an entire hour to get through what we had left in Black Flag, because I think we were down to like backgrounds and things like that. So it could be that we look at that and maybe some of these cards that I've got coming in for critical hits and the conditions and things like that for Pathfinder. That could be Sunday. So I have really enjoyed this. Oh, hey, Toadstool Hollow. Yep, you're here right at the end. That's all right. The replay, just as good. So thank you, everybody, for being here. There'll be no live stream tonight, but we will be live streaming again for the morning grind in the morning. We're looking at the Starfinder boxed set. We'll be unboxing that and seeing what Starfinder is all about. I have no idea. And then tomorrow night, Friday night, we'll be doing some type of Crafter's Corner. I need to schedule that and put that up so that you can hit the notify me button on that. So that's what's coming up. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you this morning. Everybody go be productive, get lots of stuff done, and hey, let's grind.